Take a look at this. Just a simple, jagged crack running across my concrete driveway. If you own a home, a garage, or even a small patio, there's a good chance you have one of these somewhere on your property. And if you're like most people, every time you walk past it, you feel that little flicker of anxiety. It looks like a warning sign, a flaw spreading across your property, and worst of all, a massive repair bill just waiting to arrive. Did you know a professional concrete contractor can easily charge around $1,200 to repair a cracked garage floor or driveway slab? That's a staggering amount of money for what seems like a relatively small amount of hands-on work. So naturally, you try to save some hard-earned cash. You head down to the local big-box hardware store, where they're happy to sell you a $50 epoxy repair kit or a tube of expensive specialty caulk. You spend your Saturday kneeling on cold concrete, carefully filling the crack, smoothing everything out, and feeling pretty good about the job. Then winter arrives. The ground freezes, temperatures rise and fall, and 6 months later, maybe a year if you're lucky, that expensive epoxy starts lifting right back out of the crack. Suddenly, you're exactly where you started, except now you're $50 poorer and you've lost a perfectly good Saturday. So why does this keep happening? Because much of the consumer repair industry is built around one huge misunderstanding: the idea that a crack in concrete is simply a hole that needs to be filled. But concrete is a dynamic material that follows its own physical rules. Today, on Survival Roots, we're going to break that cycle. We're going to look at the materials, the chemistry, and the old masonry secrets that can help you repair concrete yourself, permanently, easily, and for less than $10. Part 1. The Grand Illusion. Why your expensive repair kits fail. Walk into almost any home improvement store and you'll find shelves packed with colorful tubes of caulk, acrylic patching compounds, and high-tech dual cartridge epoxies. The labels are covered with phrases like industrial strength and permanent seal. And they sound convincing. But almost all of these products share one fundamental physical flaw. They treat concrete as if it were a static, lifeless stone. Concrete isn't static. In a sense, it's alive. It is rigid, porous, and constantly responding to the environment around it. Once concrete cures and hardens, it develops its own very specific rate of thermal expansion and contraction. Under the hot summer sun, your driveway expands by a tiny but measurable amount. When freezing winter temperatures arrive, it contracts again. This movement may be microscopic, but it happens continuously. Concrete has its own slow, heavy physical rhythm. Now imagine filling a crack with epoxy or synthetic caulk. You're introducing an entirely different material into that crack, a material with its own thermal expansion rate. Every day, as the sun rises and sets, the slab heats up and cools down. The concrete moves according to one physical rhythm, while the epoxy moves according to another. That difference places constant stress on the interface, the microscopic boundary where the repair material meets the original concrete. Eventually, that bond begins to fail. The rigid epoxy cracks, lifts, or peels away from the surrounding slab, opening another pathway for water to enter. It isn't necessarily because the product was badly manufactured. The bigger problem is that it was designed to solve the wrong problem. Instead of working with the physical behavior of concrete, it acts like a temporary cosmetic bandage pretending to be a permanent repair. And that keeps you trapped in the same cycle. Patch the crack, wait for it to fail, buy another kit, and start all over again. Part 2. The Science of Concrete. Understanding your slab's rhythm. If you want to repair concrete properly, you first need to understand what concrete actually is. Concrete isn't simply a solid block of stone. It is a composite material made from sand, gravel, and stone aggregates, held together by cement paste. When dry cement is mixed with water, it doesn't simply dry. A chemical reaction begins, called hydration. During this process, tiny interlocking, needle-like crystals develop throughout the mixture, gripping the aggregates together and creating the hardened material we know as concrete. But hydration also brings shrinkage. During the first 24 hours after concrete is poured, water begins evaporating from the surface. If that surface dries too quickly because of strong sunlight or wind, the outer layer can shrink faster than the wetter concrete underneath. That difference creates parallel cracks known as plastic shrinkage cracks. Then, during roughly the next 28 days, another process called drying shrinkage continues as moisture escapes from deeper inside the concrete's tiny capillary pores. Concrete is incredibly strong when it is being compressed, but it is relatively weak when pulled apart under tension. So when shrinkage creates enough internal pulling force, the material splits. A tiny hairline crack may seem harmless at first. But add water, and that tiny crack can become a slow-motion wrecking ball. Concrete is extremely porous. Inside it are countless microscopic capillary passages. Once a crack develops, that opening becomes an easy highway for moisture, allowing water to travel deep into the slab. And if you live somewhere that experiences freeze-thaw cycles, you already know what comes next. When water freezes, it expands by about 9%. Inside a narrow concrete crack, that expansion can create enormous hydrostatic pressure, tens of thousands of pounds per square inch, acting almost like a steel wedge being driven deeper into the slab. Masons sometimes call this the zipper effect. A tiny hairline crack in October allows autumn rain to enter. By December, that trapped water freezes and forces the crack just a fraction wider. By March, repeated freezing and thawing can leave you with a much larger opening. At the same time, spring water can begin washing soil away beneath the slab, allowing sections of the driveway to settle and sink. If we want to stop that process, we need to keep water out while preserving the chemistry and behavior of the concrete itself. Part 3. The detective work. Structural versus cosmetic cracks. Before you grab your tools and start filling anything, you need to learn how to read your concrete. Some cracks are perfect candidates for an afternoon DIY repair, but another type of crack can be a warning sign of serious structural trouble. Covering structural failure with a cosmetic patch is like painting over rust on a bridge. It may look better for a while, but the real problem continues developing underneath. Concrete cracks can generally be divided into 3 main categories based on severity. Hairline cracks are less than 1/16 of an inch wide. These are usually cosmetic, surface-level shrinkage cracks created during curing, and they generally do not threaten the stability of your home. Minor to medium cracks range from about 1/16 to 1/4 inch wide. These are often stable, dormant cracks where the slab has already finished settling. But even when they are no longer moving, they remain open pathways for destructive water infiltration. Major or structural cracks are wider than 1/4 inch. These can indicate soil movement, frost heave, or foundation settlement. Here's the first simple field test I use: the lip test. Run your fingers flat across the crack. Do both sides feel level? If you can clearly feel a vertical lip, where one side of the concrete sits higher than the other, that tells you the slab has physically shifted or settled. The second test is the tape test. Place a piece of tough, non-stretching tape across the crack and write the date directly on it. Then leave it in place and monitor it for about a month. If that tape tears, stretches, or begins to wrinkle, the crack is still active and moving. If the crack is located in a load-bearing foundation wall, is wider than 1/4 inch, has a noticeable vertical lip, or follows a stair-step pattern through block walls, don't simply cover it with a patch. Those are warning signs of structural movement that require a professional engineer. But if you're dealing with a stable, level crack across a driveway or garage floor, then you're in the green zone, and you're ready for the cheap, permanent repair. Part 4. The Ancient Secret. The Sodium Silicate Water Glass Miracle. Walk through an Amazon fulfillment warehouse, a Costco, or an aircraft hangar and look down at the floor. Those concrete surfaces can experience more physical punishment in a single week than your garage floor may see in an entire decade. Massive forklifts roll across them. Multi-ton pallets sit on them. Heavy wheels repeatedly cross the same areas. Yet those floors resist cracking, spalling, and turning into that familiar layer of gray concrete dust. Why? Because they are sealed with a compound called sodium silicate, commonly known as water glass. Water glass is a liquid made from sodium oxide and silicon dioxide dissolved in water. It has been commercially available since the early 1800s, and was even used for sealing concrete bunkers during World War II. It is an industrial standard, and a bottle can cost somewhere around $5 to $15. But you rarely see big retail chains pushing it as the obvious answer. There isn't much profit in showing customers a cheap solution when those stores can instead sell flashy $50 epoxy kits with much higher margins. And the chemistry behind sodium silicate is what makes it so interesting. Epoxy attempts to glue broken concrete together using plastic. Sodium silicate works completely differently. Instead of simply sitting inside the crack, it penetrates deep into the pores of the concrete. Once inside, it reacts with calcium hydroxide, also called free lime, which is a naturally occurring and structurally weak byproduct left behind during the original curing process. That reaction produces calcium silicate hydrate, or CSH, and CSH is the same primary compound responsible for giving concrete its hardness and strength in the first place. So sodium silicate isn't simply placing a patch over your concrete. It reacts with materials that are already present inside the slab, and encourages the formation of new crystals, effectively turning the damaged area back towards solid concrete. The repair becomes chemically similar to the concrete surrounding it, which means it cannot simply lift, peel, or pop loose every time temperatures change. At the same time, sodium silicate densifies the surrounding slab, helping seal out water and oil while eliminating that annoying gray concrete dust. It is essentially a professional-grade treatment for about the price of a cup of coffee. Part 5. The Survivalist Hacks, Superglue, Sand, and Kitchen Alchemy. But what if you're living off-grid, dealing with a survival situation, or simply don't have access to a chemical supplier? Your grandfather's generation had a few tricks that didn't require a trip to a specialty store, and it's worth bringing some of those methods back into the light. The first is what I call the superglue and sand bridge. If you're dealing with a very fine hairline crack, begin by filling it with clean sand. Then take thin, runny liquid superglue, cyanoacrylate, and carefully drip it along the crack. The superglue reacts almost immediately with the enormous mineral surface area provided by the sand, triggering an exothermic polymerization process that can cure rock hard in around 30 seconds. Combining sand and superglue creates a tough composite bridge across the crack, physically connecting the two sides and helping prevent them from spreading apart. If you need a fast filler for a small gap that can later be sanded, replace the sand with ordinary baking soda. The mixture cures almost instantly into a hard, cement-like material, the same type of combination luthiers sometimes use when repairing guitar components. But regardless of which filler you choose, you still need to prepare the surface properly. A patch is only as strong as the bond underneath it. For that, head into the kitchen and grab some plain white vinegar. Vinegar is mildly acidic. Scrubbing the crack with a vinegar-soaked cloth helps remove efflorescence, the white, chalky mineral residue that can prevent repair materials from bonding properly. Need a flexible, semi-clear sealer? Mix ordinary PVA wood glue 50-50 with water. Concrete is highly porous, so diluted wood glue can penetrate the surface before drying into a tough polymer barrier that helps keep water out. And finally, there's wood ash. Mix wood ash from your fireplace with a small amount of water, and it forms a lime-like paste. Wood ash naturally contains calcium and potassium, mimicking some of the self-healing chemistry associated with ancient Roman concrete. The materials may already be sitting around your home. You simply need to know how to combine them. Part 6. The Golden Rule. Preparation and the Art of Undercutting. No matter which repair material you choose, sodium silicate, polyurethane caulk, or hydraulic cement, one golden rule will determine whether your repair succeeds or fails. Preparation. Most DIY repairs fail because people rush past this stage and apply their filler directly over dirt, dust, and loose concrete. So first, clean the crack thoroughly. Use a stiff wire brush to scrub along the walls of the crack. Then use an old screwdriver or chisel to scrape away any loose or crumbling pieces of concrete. Now comes one of the old master mason's tricks: undercutting. Most natural cracks form something close to a V shape. They are wider at the surface and gradually narrower toward the bottom. If you simply pour filler into a crack shaped like that, the hardened material forms a downward-facing wedge. Under repeated traffic and movement, that wedge can eventually pop straight back out. Instead, take a cold chisel and carefully widen the bottom of the crack while leaving the surface opening narrower. The goal is to create an inverted V shape, sometimes called a keyhole cut. Once cement hardens inside that shape, the repair becomes physically locked into the slab, almost like a dovetail joint. The hardened base is wider than the opening above it, so the patch cannot simply pull straight out. But what happens when the crack is extremely deep? Don't waste expensive repair material trying to fill what feels like a bottomless hole. Instead, insert a foam backer rod into the crack to occupy most of the depth, leaving only about the upper half-inch available for your sealant or patching material. And here's the budget survival version. Take a $2 hollow foam pool noodle, cut it lengthwise into narrow strips, and push those pieces down into the crack. It performs essentially the same job as a professional backer rod, reducing the amount of repair material you need while helping you create a proper seal. Part 7. Step-by-Step Masterclass. Execute like a pro for under $10. Once your keyhole cut is finished, the crack has been vacuumed clean, and your backer rod is positioned correctly, you're ready to make the repair. We're going to cover two simple, inexpensive methods. Method A. The sodium silicate densifying treatment. This method is designed for hairline cracks and for dust-proofing porous concrete floors. Start by making sure the concrete is completely clean and dry. Next, mix 1 part liquid sodium silicate with 3 parts water inside a plastic container. Avoid using metal because the solution can react with it. Slowly pour the diluted solution directly into the crack. Allow it to soak into the concrete for about 10 minutes, then apply a second light treatment. If you want to treat an entire garage floor instead of a single crack, pour the mixture into a garden pump sprayer and apply a thin, even coat across the surface. Once finished, allow the treatment to cure for 24 to 48 hours, without foot traffic, vehicles, or water. Method B. The Rapid Set Hydraulic Cement Patch. This method is intended for wider cracks, roughly 1/4 inch to 1 inch, where you need a physical cement barrier. Begin with your prepared keyhole cut and make sure every bit of loose dust has been removed. Then mix your hydraulic cement in very small batches. This material can begin setting in only 3 to 5 minutes, so never mix more than you can realistically apply within about 2 minutes. Add cold water and mix until the cement reaches the consistency of a stiff dough. Use a putty knife to press the paste firmly into the prepared keyhole, forcing the material deep into the opening and pushing out trapped air as you go. Then run the flat edge of the putty knife across the surface, striking the patch level with the surrounding concrete. Now use the moist curing trick. Cover the fresh patch with ordinary plastic kitchen wrap and tape down the edges. That plastic traps moisture inside the repair, allowing the cement to hydrate more slowly and reach maximum strength without shrinking or cracking. Leave it covered for 24 hours. Now take another look at the driveway. The cracks have been chiseled, packed, and sealed. Is this some miracle repair that will survive untouched for 1,000 years? No. Concrete exists outdoors, in a constantly moving world. But this is a strong, inexpensive repair that can hold up for years while keeping your money where it belongs, in your pocket. And this project isn't only about avoiding a contractor's $1,200 repair bill. It's about the quiet satisfaction of realizing that you don't have to feel helpless on your own property. When we understand the rules that materials follow, we take back a little more control over the things we own. Outro So here's my challenge for you this weekend. Go outside and inspect the cracks in your driveway or garage floor. Figure out whether you're looking at stable cosmetic cracks or warning signs of structural movement. If they're stable, clean them, undercut them, pack them, seal them, and take back your slab. Then come back and tell me in the comments what you repaired and how well it held up. I read every comment. And if this helped you avoid a massive repair bill, hit subscribe and share this video with a neighbor who has been putting off those concrete repairs. Stick around, because next week we're going to talk about those confusing dates stamped on your food, the sell-by and best-by dates. I'll show you how to tell when food has truly gone bad and when you may simply be throwing your hard-earned money in the trash. Until next time, keep your tools sharp, your mind open, and your roots deep. I'll see you in the next video.